Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, we're going to be doing the best decks tier list, but before we get started, I wanted to show you the new drop on the Sleeve Shift website. They dropped the Kaidoverse Shenlong sleeves. They are packed 70 pieces together and I think they look sick, like the dragons just look amazing, and I'm gonna just quickly scroll through so you actually see how a card looks like in the border sleeve. You can make sure to get yours, of course, on their website. You can use my affiliate link to get there. It really helps the channel. And of course, you can also use my code SHADOW at checkout for 5% off your entire order. So make sure to grab any accessories you want on the Sleeve Shift website. So we're going to be talking about post Cyberstorm Access. We don't really know when the ban list is dropping. Right now, we're just looking at the decks just as they are with Cyberstorm Access legal. Of course, make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to know what you think of this format and of my tier list as well. And if you did like it, make sure to drop a like on the video. Of course, sub to the channel as well. Hit the bell so you're always notified when I post. And also make sure to check out my Patreon if you want to support me that way as well. I should be dropping content quite soon on there as well. So, you can check it out if you want. So yeah, that's the decks. That's the tiers. It's, I think, the same as the last time, although a couple of decks are new, of course, with Cyberstorm Access. Overall, I think this set is going to have quite some impact because a lot of decks are going to be really strong coming out of that set. So also, we're not mentioning every single one, all of the supports. So if you have any thoughts or want to hear my thoughts about particular stuff coming out of that set that's maybe not covered on this tier list and about any deck in general, of course, make sure to comment. Yeah, the first deck we are going to cover is going to be Branded. Now, I think Branded should probably go in tier 1.5. My issue with Branded is that the support is great, but the support is enhancing what the deck is already doing, like making good boards and all of that, but there is still the issue of inconsistency and a lot of times just losing to Ash. And I get that the support sort of helps, I get that Cartesia helps, Nadir Servant helps, but there's all of these things you need to do to not lose to Ash that hard, where sometimes you still do. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, the support is cool, but I think the core issues of the deck should be addressed somehow, and that's why I think it's only tier 1.5, not exactly tier 1 moving forward. Now, this next one is kind of tricky, actually, because dragons are they're sort of tier 2, and then some people would maybe even put them in tier 1.5, and then some would say that they're really not that great and put them at the top of Rogue. I think I'm going to go for this just middle ground, because dragons are really cool, but their issue a lot of times is Bestios aren't as impactful in every single, point in every single format. And it just sometimes feels like it doesn't do enough compared to some other decks. It does seem interesting with D-Spotter and it is benefiting off of some support from Cyberstorm Access. So hopefully we see Dragon do better in the future. And I think it's going to stay somewhere in tier 2 just for now. We also need to think about the ban list impact. And everything is going to shift probably in a couple weeks as we go deeper into the format. So I'm actually really excited to do this tier list a couple weeks down the line and really see what happens and what has changed. We have a storm. So if you hear any rumbling, I should probably wrap this video up quick. Shut all of my stuff down, all of the electronical stuff, and just I don't know, keep myself safe. But yeah, we'll continue going. We are fighting the odds. Nothing's gonna happen. So the next one is Dark World. Every single time, I'm just tempted to put Dark World in Bruh. I just do not like the deck. I don't think it's that great. I think I'll put it at the top of Rogue. It's probably the spot where it should go objectively. However, I am kind of subjective to that deck. I just don't think it's great. Also, we need to mention Droll. Droll is going to be really impactful against Super Heavy Samurai and some other decks as well, and it just literally completely annihilates Dark World, so it might struggle. And I just don't think it's good. I don't think it's consistent. I just don't really like it. So whatever, Rogue. We'll just leave it at that. Drachan is Rogue as well. I think decks like these where they can they're just combo decks, they can make a board, but a lot of decks do the same thing. And right now, if you're choosing a combo deck to play, I myself would gravitate towards Super Heavy Samurai as opposed to something like Janchon. And we are also going to be mentioning another deck which we can actually mention right now because it's Manadium. So this deck, I think it should go in tier 2, maybe even above Dragons, arguably, because it's a nice combo deck. just like Jaichon isn't a bad combo deck, but Super Heavy Samurai just does it better. And Vanadium is also very very similar to Super Heavy Samurai in terms of boards, in terms of cards that it utilizes, but it has a bigger engine, and therefore you can't play as many tech cards, whereas in Super Heavy Samurai you can do it. You're also not as fragile because a lot of times you can just, with Vanadium, just combo off and do all these insane stuff. But then at the end, you don't really have any kind of protection. If you put Baron up, you can literally just stop there. A lot of times your hand will be like, okay, I can put a Baron by the 5th summon, I can be protected, but then I won't be able to go further. So it just seems like a worse Super Heavy Samurai pretty much. So now that we mentioned it, I'm going to put Super Heavy Samurai in tier 1. I'm not entirely certain it's going to be the best deck of the format, actually. I think that with Super Heavy Samurai, a lot of people right now are hyped about it, and I don't doubt its potential. However, it seems like there's stuff to counter it, and it may not be as great a couple weeks later, like since right now the making of this video, because more stuff to counter it will like come out, I guess, or even if it doesn't, more people will be prepared to face it. That's how I should have put this. So more people will be able to just play against this deck and really know what to do, and I think it maybe is going to like sort of slip a little lower on this tier list. And I also think Kashtira is going to be better than it, if it doesn't get hit on the ban list, that is. So we're just talking about it being not hit, and if it's not, I think it's going to be really dominant. It's going to sort of like put all of these other decks in check, like Pearly and decks that really need the graveyard. So it's going to still be very dominant, and that's why I think it is going to be hit, because they want to push new decks and new products. And if it doesn't get hit, it's just going to dominate tier 1. It's still really good, it's really consistent, it's really strong, it has a ton of space, you know, to play tech cards and stuff like that. So it is going to be tier 1 in my opinion. When it comes to Pearly, I think I will keep it in tier 1. I don't know. No, I'm going to move it to tier 1.5. The thing with Pearly is that it really reminds me of Sky Striker. This is like a weird comparison, I guess, because it doesn't do as much. When you look at the quick play spell cards, there's no protection. There's no not protection. There's no effects that really do much to like counter the opponent's board. With Pearly cards, okay, you can summon Pearlies, but that's just it. So the deck seems like it's kind of like, it's very hyped right now, but it also has potential, but it just doesn't seem as great as some other decks of the past that you could compare it to. So I think that it's going to be somewhere in tier 1.5 because it has some tiny issues, just like I mentioned. You know, the spells don't seem like they do enough. It struggles against Arise Hard, against Shifter, and stuff like that. So yeah, not to ramble too much, I think it's cool, but it's also really, really hard to pilot. So not many people will be able to do as great, I think, with the deck, because it's tough to pilot it to perfection. So there's that as well. Moving on, Flunder, I think, is like, it's interesting. It should probably go in tier 2, honestly. It's not bad. It has a good matchup against the majority of decks in the meta, and I just think it's able to hang in there and really hold its own. And yeah, you know, just Flunder things. Then we have Gold Punk Pride. Gold Pride Punk. Gold Punk, basically. I think I'm gonna put it in Rogue. It should go at the top of Rogue, maybe bottom of tier 2. But the issue with these kinds of decks is it's like they do a lot, but they struggle against a lot of other things as well. So if you don't really open the perfect hand, and if you can't really play through a ton of things, it's not going to be that great. It's also the entire idea of like life points and stuff like that. If you don't really finish your games quickly and go into time, it's just going to be kind of like weird to just juggle with your life points and do that as well. That might not be a big thing. It's really not that important, I think. But just looking at the deck in its entirety, I don't think it's as strong as some of the other ones, and that's probably the most important thing when it comes to this deck. Labyrinth and other chap decks. I have chap checks on this tier list as well. I think these two decks, because they are chap decks, they're a lot of times inherently worse. And with these kinds of decks, a lot of times also there's the case of when it's a surprise factor and people don't really know how to play against the deck, it's going to be much easier to do well with it. That's why Trap Chicks was that interesting when the structure decks dropped, because people weren't really ready for how the deck is going to be played, because it's very much played almost like a combo deck. It's kind of weird, but it doesn't seem like it does enough compared to some other decks in the format. So I think I'll put Labyrinth in tier 2 and Trap Chicks at like the top of Rogue. It still has potential and does something, but it needs to open the perfect combination of monsters and traps to really shine, and that was always the issue with trap decks, you know, because you really needed to be as consistent as possible to open well and be able to hang in there. So I think the Rogue slot is like perfect for it. Marin's is interesting. I think it should go I genuinely think it should go in tier 2. It's getting some support in Cyberstorm access. You can do the wind barrier statue. That's a flashback of Flunder and the struggle. Anyway, you can establish the water barrier statue, of course, which is interesting. Some people are going to go for this. The Ice Jade card is also almost a support card, you could say, for Marinces. And overall, it just has a ton of space for hand traps. And when we are in that type of format, when you really need hand traps or tech cards of any sorts, but Marinces did tend to play 15 to 18 hand traps at all times, the deck is really, really going to do well. So I think it should go in tier 2, maybe above Labyrinth, actually. Almost arguably above Flunder, but it's almost like at the same power level, I guess, as some of these decks right here. We could move it a tiny bit further. Then we have Methmag. Now this one is going to probably be tier 1. As much as I dislike this, as much as I hate to say it, Methmag is going to be really good. I don't know, I don't mess with the deck. I don't really like it personally, but putting my feelings aside, I think the deck is quite strong and it has a ton of ability to just do everything. It literally puts up a board, it draws cards to be able to draw into non-engine, it easily OTKs if you need it to, it has the firewall cards for easy one-card circulars, which is just stupid. So yeah, the deck is going to be really strong and it's just something we're gonna have to deal with. Then we have Runic Naduria, and this one is going to be tier 1.5, I think. It could arguably go above Branded because it's really, really consistent, and when you get to draw cards, that's great. And also, if we see a ban list and a Rise card does get touched, immediately these two decks are going to become better because you don't get your cards banished anymore, which is great. And Naturia has been doing the exact same thing, so I won't waste too much time talking about it, but the deck still has a ton of potential. And then we have Plunder. I think this is just like a really basic rogue deck, pretty much. You know, it can do a lot. It can also catch you off guard if you don't really know how it plays. With the new Yord card from the last set, it received support, which is great. It can play adventure, it can play pan traps, and it's just a very decent rogue contender. And then we have Rika. I think Rika should go in tier 1.5. I've been saying this for literally months now. The deck is busted, and it's one of these decks that's like really, really rewarding if you mess with it a long time and you know every single interaction. I think the deck is going to serve you really well. I think it has a ton of potential. Also has space for hand traps and stuff like that, which is great in this format. That's also why Branded might be struggling a bit, because it just inherently doesn't have as much space. So you really need to decide which kinds of deck cards you want to play. And I know I'm ranting about Branded again, but like you need to decide what to do. And in a diverse meta, you can't really decide what to do. So you're in this weird predicament of having to guess which decks you need to measure. You need to have countermeasures for, I wanted to say, in your main deck. And you don't have as many slots. So that's kind of annoying. And Rika is literally the opposite. It has a ton of space. It has like one card stuff. So you can play that. And, you also you get disrupted, but you could still play on, because a lot of times people will not know how to disrupt Rika, which is also in favor of it. And then we have Runic for hire. I still wanted to mention it. I think it's like a really decent rogue deck, probably like next to these ones at the top of rogue. The issue with it is only that it may not see as much play as some players shift to some other decks. But overall, the deck has so much going for it. I think it's so cool. It puts up a board, has Runic as the backbone, really similar to Naturia, and draws a ton of cards, which is also good. And yeah, I think it should go in Rogue. And then we have Sprite stuff. We could mention this like at the end, I guess, because it's 3 different variants. I'm gonna quickly go over tier as well. We should probably put it at the bottom. Like, I just genuinely don't think tier is that great. I don't see people messing with it, and I understand why. It just doesn't seem like it has enough potential to be worth exploring at this point in time. It would be interesting if we get Harp back. You could play like Orca stuff with it. You know, but that's kind of wishful thinking, probably. And then we have Swords, so which should go in tier 2. I think I put it in Rogue the last time around, but it should go quite high. I think I'm gonna put it like at the top of tier 2, actually, with the new Ringo Worm. That's like amazing support for the deck. It literally feels like it's been made for this deck. It is a free body, makes another free body that could be treated as a tuner if you wanted to. And I just think Sword So is like, it's one of these decks where you can't really say it's going to do insanely well at a huge event. However, at like a regional level or something, I think Sword So can still be a very, very decent deck to use. It's just also overall really nice because it has different types of stuff you can put up, like an Omni Negate, you have a Veiler type of effect, you have a pop, you have different things to deal with the meta, and I think that's really cool. Also enough space for hand traps, which is a recurring theme today. And then we have Sprite stuff. So the Tri-Brigade stuff together with Sprite should probably go at the bottom of tier 2. Again, not a lot of people gravitate towards it because the Melfi variant just seems that much better. And then we have the Runic stuff together with Life Twin. This is probably like tier 1 still. And then the Melfi stuff, also not tier 1, tier 1.5, I wanted to say. It should probably go like next to Runic Naturia. And then the Melfi version, I think, is better. And should probably go like here, I guess. I think this is like a good placement for it. The issue with Sprite a lot of times is that you don't get as much, like, you don't get to play as much, because if you get to the grind game, a lot of times you're really missing that elf and you need to rely on different engines, and that can be tough sometimes. It's kind of in a weird position, and we'll see what happens on the ban list, because they might even hit it to force people to play other decks. So if they hit it, Sprite is just going to slide down this tier list drastically. But I think overall, looking at this tier list, I'm kind of satisfied. I think this is a fair depiction of the meta. We can see how it's fairly diverse at the top if you compare it to some older formats. But like I said before, and I keep repeating it, this is no ban list, you know, in mind when it comes to this tier list, as we have none on the horizon probably for some time now. So I don't know, maybe after some nationals they decide to drop it. Maybe they have like one of the big nationals be played under the new list or something, which is like, I think at the end of June, if I'm not mistaken, like German nationals and stuff like that, that's like bigger. So yeah, a lot of nationals are probably going to be played under this current list. However, with Cyberstorm Access legal. Also, this tier list is going to probably, not this tier list, but placing decks in the meta is going to make much more sense after YCS Philadelphia, as it's going to be the first big event played under Cyberstorm Access legal, and I can't wait to see it. Of course, I'm going to be making a recap, so keep an eye out for that next week. But that's a long way away. Before that, you're going to get a ton more content from me, and if you enjoyed this video in particular, please make sure to like it, like I said, and share your thoughts. You know, I think it's cool. I think I'm satisfied, and I would also love to hear what you think. The only thing that's sort of bothering me is like the gold punk stuff, but I think it should be in Rogue. We'll see what happens. If later down the line stuff sees more play and it sees actual tops, I'm very much willing to put it higher. So there's that. Also, don't forget to check out Sleeves Chief. Use my code if you decide to purchase anything, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.